Remember, knowledge is not free. You have to pay attention.
You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over! Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass!
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding looking horse he is.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
What's going on there, everybody? Mr. Sette, back at you, Past the Wire TV. I'm very excited. How about you guys? Saratoga 2024, opening up a month sooner than we're accustomed to. And that itself is a beautiful thing. So the 2024 Belmont Stakes Racing Festival begins on Thursday. So you know what? Even though it's a Thursday, I know that 80-90% of horse players are still going to be looking to bet the race day, particularly Saratoga, because it's Saratoga. Think about the opening every year at Saratoga in July on a Thursday, the interest and the hype and the desire to get down on the action. Well, there's more spice on it this year because, of course, it's the Belmont Racing Festival 4-day extravaganza, starts on Thursday. And what I'm going to bring to you today is the full race card, all 10 races, my thoughts, my analysis, my recommendations for you to make a good amount of money. The ambition and the object and the target is always to crush every one of the races. But if you don't hit the bullseye, you just missed the bullseye, you still hit the target. And the target is to be profitable. Okay? So I put a lot of work into this, as I always do. And we have some circumstances that we may have to tackle, like the weather, God willing. One thing I'll tell you about Saratoga, I go every year. Saratoga, obviously that region in the Adirondacks, upstate New York, you have isolated thunderstorms all the time. 3 miles away, it could pour like cats, dogs, and gorillas. And at the track, it may not rain. And then vice versa. At the track, it's pouring, and 3 miles away, it's not. All right, so I have worked on my handicap entirely on a fast track and turf racing. However, in each of the turf races, I put some added indications that if it comes off the turf, I would make recommendations there. So I'm not going to leave you hanging on that regard. Of course, by the way, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you could bet the entire Belmont Stakes Racing Festival on AmWager. Who's better than you, right, for the comfort of your own home? So if you're not a part of AmWagers, go for it now and get yourself in action. Okay, without further ado, all in considering the weather forecast, which, like I said, right now it's a 58% chance of rain. The likeliness of more rain on Thursday, from what I can see now, and I like to say I'm a meteorologist, but I'm not. The likeliness of rain is more so on Thursday than it is Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but it's not guaranteed that we're going to have an off track. But the dirt races are what they are, and if the track is wet, still is. I'm still grounded to my selections. I put that as a consideration in my handicap. But if the race is scheduled for the turf or off, I'll make additional indications. All right? Without further ado, let's get started. Race 1. This is a post time, by the way, 12:50, 10 minutes to 1 on Thursday. Remember, if you're working, and you're a horse player, I know you'll still be in action. Maybe you're attending the festival and you already will be at the track at Saratoga. Good for you. And if you're not working, who's better than you? You just get yourself some good food to eat, whatever your favorite beverage is, and get ready for a full day of racing. And I'm going to provide all I can for you on Thursday so you could not only make an informed decision for yourself at the window, but maybe position you for better success. Okay? All right. Race 1. Told you the post time's 10 to 1. A mile and a 16th, maiden claimers on the turf. Now, it's the only maiden tag race of the day. And Saratoga and the Belmont Racing Festival did a good job by putting 16 listed in this race, just in case it's off the turf. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do, in some races, I'm going to go straight down. And other races, I'm just going to tell you who I've been decisive with. So because this race is potentially off the turf, I'm going to give you a little more information, because if it is off the turf, I want you to be more prepared, and you want to start off with a good win, and it is the first race in the early pick 5, okay? The 1, Hours in a Day, I think, and I really like this this particular colt's chances in this race. 2 races under his belt. One was a special weight, one was a claimer, less at 20. If it's on the turf, it's a horse that's stretching out from his 2 sprint races and now hitting the turf. But if it's off the turf, I'm still okay with it, all right? The horse showed nice gait speed in both his starts. It is a son of Gun Runner. Connections are a little light, but I trust the rider. Definitely a contender. And if it's off the turf, if it's on the turf, I like him as one of my top 2 choices. That's Hours in a Day, the 1. The 2 is Mighty Glory. First time gelding, first time Lasix. I trust the connections. You got Flavorian Pratt in the saddle. A first race in 24. Ran 3 times in 23 as a juvenile. Wasn't part of my main handicap on the turf, but I give this horse a little more consideration if it came off the turf. And like I said, with this first race in particular, if it's wet earlier in the morning, because they need to preserve the turf, if you will, for the later, bigger races on the lawn, they could take this first race off the turf. All right. So it's more than a possibility. Let's face it. Let's hope there's nothing off the turf. So medium range consideration for Pratt on the deuce on Mighty Glory. The 3, Castellanos up for James Ferraro. LCGO Lucky. Didn't think much of this horse. Only has 1 under his belt in the mud at Aqueduct. Now they were going to stretch him out and go 2 turns on the turf. I need to see more. I wasn't going to use the 3 in this race. The 4 is Fire Baron. Many starts, 0 for 27. Not really a desirable position to be in if you're a horse player. A couple of decent races. He did have a race over the Saratoga course, actually 2 over Saratoga. But others in this race were just more appealing. I would consider that horse more if the race was on the turf rather than off the turf. The 5, Drunk on Sake. Now, Drunk on Sake, I thought was somewhat intriguing, only because he's got that 1 start at Aqueduct in the mud. He broke really, really aggressively, broke fast, rushed up. He wasn't bet at all that day. He was 60 to 1. Now he's getting Lasix and he's getting blinkers. I think the mask will help. He really folded badly, but he had the type of gait speed you like to see in a horse early on in his career. And, he didn't race as a juvenile. He's 3 years old. If it was on the turf, I was intrigued and I had him in my handicap. And if it was off the turf, I thought he still had a pretty good shot. Switch over to Dylan Davis, always a plus. Watch the board with Drunk on Sake. He's got to improve. Nice workout at Belmont on June 2nd. I think the horse got some fast legs. Like I said, improvement is inevitable with that guy. The 6 is Bookworm. Now, Bookworm is the son of Kitten's Joy. I gave this horse a tremendous amount of regard if the horse remains on turf. Joao Rosario up for Christophe Clement. I specified with this, in my humble opinion, I don't think the horse is going to go if the race is off the turf. If it's on the turf, first time going, lots to like about this guy. The connections alone, Rosario for Christophe Clement, working smartly by Kitten's Joy. All Kitten's Joy runners are good runners early on in their career, and they win it first asking. So on the turf, the horse gets a lot of money and is right there, top of my handicap. Must use in your multiples. But off the turf, I believe the horse is going to scratch, and I wouldn't use him off the turf. Just my opinion. The 7 is Pulsel. Low-grade connections. Also ran in the mud at Aqueduct. After a couple of races on the turf in 23, they let him go in his 4-year-old debut just a few weeks ago. Wasn't overly impressed. I still think the horse can go forward. In terms of my handicap, I'm going back and forth with my notes because I did two ends of it. If it's going to be off the turf or not. But not a great consideration. I'm probably going to toss him either way if he starts. The 8 is Discreet Bob. Plummets down from a special weight. Didn't do much running at all in his debut. Hard to recommend, even with the significant drop. I will not be using Discreet Bob. The 9 is Kamachi Peak. Interestingly enough, blinkers go on. Wonderful turf pedigree for this horse. And his light connections here. If the race is on turf, I think the horse would show something, stretching out and going 2 turns, maybe fill your deeper gimmicks. But like I said, the drop into a tag is enticing, but the horse showed absolutely nothing in his first race. So most likely this is a pass. If it's off the turf, I'm not going to consider him at all. Okay. Excuse me. That was Discreet Bob. Kamachi Peak is the horse with the, I'm sorry if I went back. Jesus Christ. I was on the 9, Kamachi Peak. That was Discreet Bob. This horse, interestingly enough, his 2 starts were at a big distance, an indication of the pedigree he has on the lawn. Putting blinkers on him, working well. I was interested in this horse if it was on the turf, the 9, for my deeper gimmicks. But he may run if it's off the turf, and I'm not going to use him. That's the 9. The 10 is Dangerous Driver. Eric Gonzalez up for Jose Jimenez. Not the most electric connections, but this horse is experienced, 12 races in, all those races in maiden special weight ranks. Every time this guy, it's a gelding, has run for a tag, he's run and raced well. So at a tag, he's a contender. If it's off the turf or if it's on the turf, he still needs to be considered. His numbers are right there. He's raced with better. Like I said, each time he's raced for a tag, he has raced well and competitively. On the also eligible list, and I have to mention a few here, Zen Air. All right, Zen Air, who's the 11. In his only start from the outside, this is at Tampa. I watched this race a couple of times. The horse was willing willing to run, and I like to see that on the initial debut. Was bumped, and he just drifted wide. No doubt, if this guy goes and it's off the turf, I'd consider him, and I'd also give him some consideration if it's on the turf, not so much on the win-in, but in your deeper gimmicks. Like I said, this tag race, Jesus, it was all over the place because I'm really thinking that if it is wet and it's off the turf, the whole race does like a topsy-turvy flip side. So I had to consider a lot of things. The 12 is Caesar's Ghost, significant drop from special weight into the tag, dangerous if he draws in. I always like Trevor McCarthy on a horse like this. Would expect him to be a pretty deep closer, but certainly not out of it if he draws in this field on the drop down alone. Two other horses I'm going to mention. Well, I'll mention all the deeper horses because if it's off the turf, the 12, 14, and 15 are, in my opinion, the most to consider. The 13 is Oxford Union by Union Rags. One race as a juvenile, as a 3-year-old, then made his first start as a 4-year-old. After a year layoff, it's his second race after a year layoff. Would be dangerous if he draws in for Shug. But if this race is off the turf, I think he's going to scratch. He'll be one of the ones that scratches. If it's on the turf, he's dangerous because, forward movement, improvement, good barn, Kendrick card moves for Shug. The 14 is another one. I have it marked here in my handicap. He's a threat if he draws in and it's sloppy. Trust John Terranova. I trust the jockey if it is McCarthy on him. He's listed on 2. Again, won't start unless the race is off the turf. If it's on the dirt, and there are a lot of turf horses that are scratched, he's in the mix. 14. The 16 should scratch one way or another, whether it was off the turf or on the turf. And the 15, convincing. Is it convincing? No. Conniving, not convincing. I saw convincing when I saw it. Decent maiden for a tag, nothing really to write home about. But I gave him 2 marks if it's wet. So if there's a bunch of scratches to the inside, the 15 is a contender because, he's got the races under his belt and he's proven himself in the wet. All right. So my apologies for being all over the place in this race. But the reason why I is because even though I'm no weatherman, if they were going to take any race off the turf, it would be this one. And if they do, then it becomes a real wide open affair. And by the way, I'm hoping you jotted some things down. As I go through all these races, whatever you feel like is important to you to jot down as a note or rewind and watch again, that's up to you. But that's what would work for me if I was taking a good amount of information in one sitting, because this way it'll help you make a more informed decision in your wagering opportunities. Now, this first race, it is the start of the pick 5. You may get involved in the pick 5, you may not. The only horse I see that could be a particular high interest or high level favorite would be the 6 Bookworm, Rosario for Clement, if it's on the turf. So keep that in mind. All right. My handicap on the turf is 165, 10, 2, 4, 11. And off the turf, you heard what I said. It's all about the horses drawing in on the outside and, the 1 to 5, 12, 14, and 15. I got to get past this race. I even confused myself. I'm sorry about that. All right, race 2. All right. This is the 5.5 furlong sprint at $150,000 Tremont Stakes. It's on the dirt, so no worries, straightforward. And this handicap applies, and I've considered the fact that if it's wet or if it's fast, if I need to share a specific indication, I will, okay? So in race 2, I'll start with this race and I'll go on. I'll tell you what my handicap is, and then I'll elaborate on the horses that I mentioned. Oh, and just so you know, what I always do in deep fields, I take my handicap in a precise order, and those who are familiar with me, you're aware of this. But I go 6, 7, sometimes 8 deep, because if they make my handicap, and I'm going to, there could be one of you guys or it could be myself, that I'm going with a deeper wager, especially if there's going to be some scratches in the race. But if I list 6 horses, just so you know how my format is, if I go 6 deep, no doubt my top choice is my top choice. Same for second and third. But I go 4, 5, and 6 to add an opportunity for you to go deeper in a superfecta key, triple key, or have another consideration in case one of my other horses doesn't go. All right? That's one of the reasons why I go deep. So in race 2, my order is 5, 4, 7, 8, 6, 1. 5, 4, 7, 8, 6, 1. Let's talk about those horses and those horses only. We'd be here for 3 hours if I went through every horse in every race. The reason why I did that in race 1, because it was one of those races. There was 16 entries. And at this moment, I don't know if it's going to be on the lawn or off the turf. All right, so race 2, the $150,000 Tremont is a sprint, 5.5 furlongs, and I gave you my order. Let's talk about them. My top choice is 3 Echoes, with an asterisk here, because Keith Asmussen is listed as the jock, but Keith Asmussen was had a bad injury. He's out. And at this time of me taping the show, I don't know who his replacement is yet. However, Stephen Asmussen, his dad, I know is going to put somebody worthwhile on him. And I like the horse. So as long, I'm sure it's not going to be a rider who I'm not going to trust. So 3 Echoes. His first at Churchill Down, ran a nice number, special weight. It was just 13 days ago, so they're coming right back. It was on an off track. This is the son of Echo Town. Remember, these are 2-year-olds in this sprint. By the way, you don't ever see many races that's a stakes race, non-graded stakes race, where you have first-time starters going, in a stakes race for the first race. So 3 Echoes has a race under his belt, ran very well. I think he'll sit a good trip. He's working well. I think he's the horse to beat. So he's my top choice. The 4, Brereton's Baytown. All right. Working smartly. Son of Upstart. First time going. His collective works intrigued me. I think the horse is made to be a sprinter. I trust the barn, capable rider. I used it as my second choice. That's the 4. I think the horse is has the look of a horse that's going to begin his career with a good start. The 7 is my third choice, Touchy. Now, many will look at this and say, Touchy, Rosario for Wesley Ward, why wouldn't it be a number 1, top choice? Believe me, son of Nyquist, has a good gate work. Every time Wesley puts a 2-year-old out there, they're ready to run. But generally speaking, Wesley Ward runs his 2-year-olds in a race or 2 before they go for a stake. Now, I don't know if it's the theatrics of the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. But here you got Wesley Ward, a horse making his debut for a stake. Usually come out running. You know, his works are not bad. His last work at Saratoga, you know, medium range. I like Three Echoes more, and I just think that the touchy in this spot, you know, he's probably going to be bet at the window. He's my third choice, but I just think he's beatable. That's my gut feeling when I completed my handicap. My fourth choice is the 8 Classic, of course. You get Irad up for Patrick Biacone. Irad will always add to appeal. This horse has a race under his belt. Gulfstream Park, 4.5 furlongs, was never challenged. Wasn't overly impressive, but he won by open lengths. It was just a bad maiden field. Drew off rather easily. Irad is a change, and he'll always add more appeal to a young horse. So the 8 is my fourth choice. I'm thinking about using the 8 in my multiples as well because it is Irad, and I wouldn't be shocked if he was in the exacta as well. So the 8 should be used in most of your gimmicks in this field. The 6 is my fifth choice. Shoot the Nickel. Dylan Davis is up for Chad Summers. Solid works, another horse. This is a son of violence making his debut in a stakes race. 150,000 ungraded stakes race. But I like his workout pattern. I like that he has a gate work. I like his last work. I trust Dylan Davis. Wouldn't be surprised if this son of violence ran a good race at first asking. Lastly, the last horse that made my handicap in the race is the 1. So Perez is up for John Robb. Horse won easily in the slop at Laurel. You know, I liked his finish. He was on the rail. His jock asked for him, and he was rather aggressive. And if you watch the race, you say, you know, this could be a fairly good racehorse, but the field was a very weak field. So here's the son of Nyquist. I just said to myself after I watched that race, like him, don't love him, working well. The others just seem to have more appeal, but he made my handicap. You know, and if others scratch in the race, which is not likely, it's an 8-horse field, you know, I can understand someone backing him, but even though it was a special weight, I just think he's facing tougher guys in this race, and I just need to see more than he showed me that day. Even though I like the way he was driving on the rail. That's race 2. A sip of water. I got a lot to cover. All right, race 3. State bred allowance, 7 furlongs. Let me give you my order first, and then I'll go over the horses I speak of. 9-horse field, very wide open in a lot of regard, because I sort of changed. I did a lot of race review on this race because I just felt it was evenly matched. There's a few that I know are going to be bet more, sort of universally. But, you know, you can make an argument for many in this race. So my top 6 is 4, 5, 8, 2, 7, 3. 4, 5, 8, 2, 7, 3. Let's talk about it. The 4 is Toscano. 1 race under his belt. Son of Vino Rosso. Excuse me. It was an open company win. Now he's going back to state breds in his first race, first winners. Big angle I like. It's Larry Ravelli, a barn I trust, who's very consistent, very reliable, and Irad's up. The debut was impressive. I don't blame him. You know, they actually could have took this horse and put him in a low-end stakes race. But He's going back to state breds. Probably will get some action at the windows. I'm not sure of what his morning line will be, but I'm looking to get like maybe 4 or 5 to 1 on this horse at post time. Let's see if that happens. But there's a potential that he could be, bet to a greater extent at the window. The 5 is Silver Satin. Jorge Abreu, Castellanos up. I like the fact that he's a 7 furlong winner. Remember, 7 furlongs, very unique distance. Horses are creatures of habit. And when you're good at that particular distance, it's often that you repeat a good effort at the distance. And this guy, Gray Geldon, has 2 nice races at 7 furlongs. His last 2, both at Aqueduct. So win under his belt, ran a pretty good number. State breds. I wouldn't be surprised. He's going to be my main exacta and all of my triples and my superfectas, because I think he'll sit a good trip. And I think he's proven to be built for the distance. My third choice is the 8, BD Saints. Drops down into this allowance race, now one is a 1. Mike Maker, who, Mike Maker is one of the better conditioners in the sport. How often do you see Mike Maker, more often on the turf, but take a horse, claim him, and then just make the owners and make others a lot more money after his claim? So comes in out of Mike Maker stable, gets Lasix. Vasquez is a new rider here. If it's wet, I'm okay. Ran a good race in the mud at Aqueduct. To me, has the numbers to be competitive. Actually ran in the Grade 2 Pilgrim, which is an open company race, a few races back. A contender in this field, and has a race over the Saratoga Oval. But that's BD Saints, who's my third choice. My fourth choice, remember, when I say third choice, fourth choice, that's my precise order. All right. You make a decision if you want to use if you're looking to have another consideration in your multiple race wages, But when I say my first, second, third, and fourth, the way I bet is I stick to my guns. I play my win. I play my cold exacta. I play my cold triple. I play my cold superfecta. Then, based on all the other factors that are what I see over the track, how I read the board, if I have more overlays in my handicap, then I make a decision if I want to do a key, or if I want to use more in my pick 3s or pick 4s or pick 5s or anything of that nature. Anyway, who was I up to? I was up to the 2, my fourth choice, Caldo Candy for James Bond. Speedy horse, high speed. Gave him a big S for speed in my handicap. Rivera's up for him. Good rider, consistent, likes to be near the lead. Also a horse that's proven in the wet. I saw him as an immediate contender because I felt like he'd be on or close to the pace. He got bet really well a few times. So I'm expecting him to take money. But in this spot, I couldn't be decisive with him. He made my handicap as my fourth choice, but, he became just that. I wasn't bubbling with confidence. I'm actually hoping he gets the money I think he may get at the window, which may create an overlay situation for some of my other horses that I feel are more appealing. Fifth choice on the board is the 7, Landioro, Rosario for Christophe Clement. Pretty good spot. Won at the distance at Aqueduct in his second start. Now he's coming out of that optional claim on a fast track where he ran a good second. There's no reason why he shouldn't get consideration in this race. But ultimately, the others who I have listed above appeared to be more appealing to me. Lastly, the 3, Brick Ambush, Danny Gargan. Alvarado's up for Danny Gargan. Ran in the mud at Aqueduct, so if it's wet, I'd move this guy up. Remember, this handicap, even though I'm considering dirt races, my initial handicap is for a dry surface. I may have to make a game time decision if it's really messy out there, if the weather's inclement and it's very sloppy, or if they, it rains first and it's harrowed and sealed. As handicappers and as horse players, we make changes as we go along as well. But one of the things I noted about this guy is, he's got a lot of races where he raced well. He's 4 for 6 in the money. He's proven in the wet. Has he been spectacular? No, but he's been rather consistent. And Danny Gargan knows how to win races over in Saratoga. He may better my rating, and on race day I may move him up a bit. But when I considered everything in my handicap, others just seemed to be more appealing to me, and I had to stick to my guns. This race, among all, will not be a race that I bet heavier. I'm going to use my horses in the pick 5. I just, I'm one of those guys. If I'm not feeling a decisive advantage where it builds my confidence, then, I taper off on my wagering. But I ran up for Larry Ravelli after that open company win, going back to state breds. I was impressed with him. That's why he's going to be my top choice. That's race 3. I got to go get another bottle of water, maybe. A lot of talking. But I'm here. I love you guys. I'm happy that you guys join me as well. Race 4, Saratoga. Fillies. The $150,000 Jersey Girl. This race is scheduled on the dirt, so we don't have to worry about any changes here. And again, I put the wet into consideration, and I made a conclusive handicap. Now, in this race, because it's only an 8-horse field, my top 5 I'm going to give to you, but I'm going to say something about all 8 horses because I just figure it's a good spot to be informed, and it's a stakes race. And it's the girls. It's the fillies. So my order of finish in my handicap is 5, 8, 4, 3, 2. 5, 8, 4, 3, 2. Let's talk about it. The 5. Almost Gone Rocket. Nice looking filly. Into Mischief filly. Very hard in this field to go against. I'm going to repeat it. When I completed my handicap, and I basically watched every race every one of these fillies has run. When I landed on Almost Gone Rocket, she has 2 races. I was just overly impressed. So hard to go against this gal. Fast filly, now 2 for 2, and won both races by open lengths. Proven in the wet as well. She won her debut in a maiden special at Oaklawn Park, then came back at Churchill Downs. And by the way, this is Brad Cox train. You know this, but I figured I'd mention it. So in this race, this is one of those races where I'm doing a superfecta key, and I may even single this horse because I didn't make a decisive single, but if anything, at best, I'm going to use my second choice, because I just saw I think this is a very talented filly. Okay, at least what I visually saw in reviewing those two race replays. Second choice is the 8 Gray Lightning. Very impressed with this gal's speed too. Connections are consistent, reliable. Now, this horse has the potential to also be special. Two big things here, but the horse literally won by close to 30 lengths in the last 2 starts at Parks. However, those 2 races, she had the benefit of Lasix. No Lasix here in a stakes race at Saratoga. But the horse ran back-to-back 94 buyers, blowout wins, confidently ridden, just in a soft cruise home. Granted, against weaker, but has to be listed as a contender in this race, and in my opinion, the most likely second place finisher. Because I just think the 5 is classier. But make no mistakes, how often do you see a horse running back-to-back 94 buyers and winning by a dozen or more lengths each time? And, it's a $370,000 yielding purchase. So it's not a dog. The horse is 4 for 4 in exactas in her career. That's the 8 Gray Lightning. Third choice is the 4. This horse was really interesting, who I'm also going to use in my exactas and my triples. This is the horse. You may ask, well, why am I listing Gray Lightning as my second choice and the 4 Manama Gold as my third? Well, basically, it's like my second choice and then my second choice B, because they were very close in my handicap. Johnny V's up for Todd Pletcher. Very impressed with those 3 races overseas. Working nicely at Saratoga, making a U.S. debut here. I trust Todd Pletcher, and I trust Johnny V. This horse potentially make a run at the 5 in the stretch, but I have to make a business decision whether I'm going to use him in the multiples. But if I use any horse in my exacta and my triple underneath Almost Gone Rocket, it's going to be the 4 here for Pletcher. The 3 is my 4th choice, Becky's Joker. Now, Becky's Joker, if you remember, this is Gary Contessa's filly that last year in July won the Grade 3 Schuylerville at long odds, 21-1. I actually liked the horse that day. First time out, stakes race, boom, popped, and ran very impressively. When actually after that race, like 3 weeks later, ran again in the Adirondack and ran very poorly and hasn't been seen since. So long layoff, August at Saratoga. Again, the horse has a win over the track. This horse, I believe, was actually entered, believe it or not, in the Acorn, which is on Friday. And the Acorn field is just a fabulous field of fillies, highlighted by Torpedo Anna. So I'm sure the horse is going to scratch out of that and run in this race. So Alvarado's up for Gary Contessa. First race as a 3-year-old. Working well. I like the workout pattern. If the horse is in the race, because she ran really well over the track at Saratoga, and horses that run well at Saratoga, talking about horses or creatures of habit, they usually come back and run well at Saratoga. But I don't think the horse is fast enough to compete with the 5 or even my 2 others. So Becky's Joker is my 4th choice. My 5th choice was Roaming Grace. Irad's up for Todd Pletcher. Excuse me. Well bet in all 3 of her races. Fits with this group. I believe she needs to run a little faster too. It is the daughter of Munnings. Can't emphasize the appeal and the benefit you have when IRAD rides a horse for the first time. This is the fourth rider the horse has had in all 4 races. So you would think there'd be a forward movement because the horse is consistent. So the 2, being my 5th choice, that's going to probably close out my superfecta key if I use the 5 on top and I go 8, 4, 3, 2. If I go 4 deep in my superfecta key for a nice chunk of change in this race, because I like the race. The others I didn't mention a 7, Moonlit Lady, simply dynamic on the lawn in her last, going 5 furlongs at Churchill. So she's coming off the turf to this race. She is by Malibu Moon. Fausto Gutierrez is a crafty trainer. I thought a little about if I was going to go another horse deep in my superfecta key, I would consider using that horse in the mix here. But that's a game time decision. I just think the horse is going to be there early and probably not have much left at the end against more superior fillies. But the last race was impressive on the turf. Very impressive. I said I'd mention something about everybody in this race. Yeah, the last 2, the horse on the reel is a speedy gal, Carmelina. She was also proven in the wet. So if it's wet, I guess you can consider her moving up a bit. But she's had many races. She's very dependable on the front end. But, the level of competition just wasn't the same. She's had many chances to, to beat better horses. She's got 4 wins to her credit. I just think she's overmatched in this race. Jose Lascano up for Robert Reed. And lastly in the race, Dorothy's Dream, the 6. Anthony Ferraro is a barn I like and respect. Trevor McCarthy's up. A lot of races, won a couple times out. Comes in with back-to-back victories. And the horse, I gave thumbs up for being a rather relentless type of closer. Nice turn of foot in a stretch, but she's got to run faster. And when a horse has several races and never took her race times to the next level, that's why it's a reach here. And I think the horse won't be back much at the window, and it's like an outsider to me. But nice looking filly and a good racehorse, but could be overmatched in this race. All right, that's race 4, which was the Jersey Girl for 6 furlongs. Hopefully by right now, we're alive in the pick 5. Let me adjust my seat. Race 5. Post time 3:01. So it's Thursday afternoon. You got 4 in the bag. Be race 5. And now here's where it gets messy again. It is a classic state-bred fillies maiden special on the turf. Turf sprint, 5.5 furlongs. So if God helps us and there's no rain whatsoever, or just rained in the morning and all turf is still on the turf, my handicap on the turf was 961, 2411. 961, 2411. If it's off the turf, my handicap does a big change to 210.36. 210.36, and then not knowing entirely of all the horses that scratch. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and it's on the turf. And so I'll talk a little about my top 5 on the turf, and then I'll talk about the horses off the turf, just so you have a little more information that you may not see yourself when you do your handicap. Okay? Again, state breds. Here we go. Maiden Special Turf Sprint. The 9. Heart of the Night. West Coast Shipper. Daughter of City of Light. 275,000 as a yearling. Franco's up for very reliable barn in Horatio de Paz. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. But I know the barn, and they win a lot of races in New York. Very impressed with all the races the horse has on the West Coast. In terms of being matched right for this race, looking to graduate, should get a square price. Worked out almost entirely on the West Coast, but did come to Belmont and breezed. I like a horse like this that's going to be in the mix early. And I just think the fact that they're shipping her in for this race, and I trust her connections, I feel like she's going to make a good run for it if it's still on the lawn. That's the 9. The 6, the second choice here. In the end, Kenrick Carmouche up for Sweeney. Very interesting about this guy because it's an open company horse that is going back for the first time running against state-bred rivals. This is something I watch very carefully often. It's also a filly who raced against the boys in her debut on the lawn. So you got a horse that raced against the boys in debut, then ran nothing but open company races. And in my opinion, in watching the races, she didn't get bet at the window, but she'll be bet now. And I just think the horse is improving nicely. So in the end is a threat here. And I actually gave this horse consideration if it was off the turf as well. But in my opinion, my second choice in the race I'll be using in all my multiples and in my exotics as well. The 1 is my third choice, Strictly Taboo. Rosario's up for Christophe Clement. Also ran an open company in debut, has been exclusive to running in maiden special state-bred races, always getting bet at the window. For obvious reasons, you got to be enamored by the connections. Rosario for Christophe Clement. Race times are right there in the mix. The only thing you're dealing with Strictly Taboo is the layoff. The last time this horse came out was in October of 23. So she's making her 4-year-old debut. I trust the barn. Workouts are moderate at best, not overly impressed. I don't know if this horse is ready for a sprint like this, first race back. But it is a sprinter, and if it's on the turf, she's a contender. So she's my third choice. My fourth choice on the turf, Magnolia Wind. Again, 3 consecutive races, open company for a tag. I like to see that. A horse running an open company and then coming back to run against state breds. A lot of races to consider. I watched all of them. Comes off a couple of races over on a synthetic at Turfway Park. This could be an interesting spot for the 2, a Magnolia Wind, if it's on the turf. If it's off the turf, I think the horse will run, and then this horse becomes my top choice off the turf. So a contender on the turf, top choice off the turf for different reasons. My next choice on the turf is the 4, Summer Whirl. This is a 3-year-old daughter of Arrogant. My 5th choice, Summer Whirl. Johnny V's up for Grand Motion. Grand Motion's barn's been as hot as you could imagine. Always consistent and reliable on the lawn. $225,000, yielding purchase for this daughter of Arrogant. LASIK's first time a go, working from the gate. When I saw the connections, Johnny V and Grand Motion, right away I was zeroed in. But works weren't overly impressive, and I don't know if this horse wants to sprint 5.5 on the lawn. So sort of like a watch and see approach, but because of the connections and my respect I have for jockey and trainer, made my handicap on the turf. Lastly, on the turf, the 11, Frankie Dettori on this mare, a 5-year-old mare. So the elder statesman of the race, Frankie Dettori rides this mare 0 for 14 lifetime. Has been continually running in the special weights, hasn't been able to break through, has hit the board 6 times on the lawn, has run over the weeds in Saratoga, some decent efforts. I don't know. I thought this horse needed a little more ground. They're cutting back a bit here. Mixed signals. Did have a pretty good work at Saratoga on the dirt, May 29th. Second start as a 5-year-old mare. Could surprise. Made my handicap at the tail end. Remember, when I go 5 or 6 deep, my focus is a key wager, where a horse makes my handicap. So now he or she is 10, 12, 15 to 1. It creates a nice super price for me because I thought enough to leave the horse in my handicap. That was my order of finish on the turf. I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish the forecast was golden sunshine, 85 degrees. I can't tell you how many times I've been to Saratoga and I would bite my nails at night handicapping turf races because of the zoning and how those thunderstorms come and go. And they're so isolated. A few miles away on Broadway, it could be pouring cats and dogs, and at the track, it's not, and vice versa. So, anyway, if this is off the turf, my order is 2-10-3-6. I talked about Mongolia Wind, who I'm going to like on either surface, but like more off the track. The 10 is Arena Rye with Ortiz up for Robert Falcone, a barn I have great respect for. Now, the reason why I didn't jump on this horse if the race was on the turf, because I just think there are others that have that appeal, like they belong on the turf. Irad for Bob Falcone, always enticing, but the horse ran twice, wasn't very fast, got bet. I needed to see more. But if this race is on off the turf, then Irad for Falcone, they could win the race. If it's on dirt, and would be my second choice. The 3, Spirit of Esther, Cancella for Carlos Martin, daughter of Central Banker. Again, 3 races under her belt. If it was off the turf, I would consider this horse more of a threat than if it was on the turf. And lastly, in the end, who made my handicap on the turf as my second choice, would be considered in my exotics and certainly in my triple and superfecta if the horse was switched to the dirt. That's Carmouche up for Sweeney. And I talked about that horse before when I started this race. All those races in open company now coming back to restricted state breds. That's race 5. Race 6, fillies, maiden special, 100 grand on the dirt, 7 furlong. Remember that very unique distance of 7 furlongs. Same handicap here, whether it comes up wet or dry. If I need to indicate something in the wet, I will. I marked a couple of things in my form. By the way, my form is what I print out, the PDF, and then I mark all up. You could see the highlights and the discoloration and all that. I do a lot of work. Anyway, race 6, post time 3:35. My order of finish is 5-1/1A. I'll get into that in a second. 974. All right. When I'm reading numbers, jot them down. Okay. So let's start with my top choice, the 5. She's wicked smart. Something I say about my daughter now and then, coincidentally, because my daughter Sammy is a very smart young lady. So She's Wicked Smart is a daughter of Run Happy. Jose Lascano's up for Rob Falcone. Last time the horse was out was in August of 23. So you're dealing with a long layoff here. However, very, very impressed with how this gal is working in preparation for her first start at 3. So that one race as a juvenile looked really, really sharp. I liked the way the horse had sort of like a continuance to her run. It's a long layoff, but you're probably going to see price in there. And I trust the barn. I trust the ride. I feel this horse is going to be ready to roll in her first start at 3. Now, the 1 and the 1A is a pair of horses coupled here from the Todd Pletcher barn. The 1 is Chanteuse, Flavian Pratt, and the 2 is Audacious with Irad. Now, if they both go, you got Pratt and Irad for Todd Pletcher, both first-time starters, both working well, both the into mischiefs. What do? I mean, if one is out, I still like the other. And if they both run, they're both dangerous. I may make a stand because I think this She's Wicked Smart looks pretty strong. And I trust the barn that horse is going to be ready for her first go at 3. So I'm probably not going to come off the 5. But the 1 and 1A, if they both run, they're both dangerous. And if one of them is in and the other is not, she will be dangerous. And either could win the race at first asking based on the connections alone. All right. Remember, these are 3-year-olds and upward. And many are making their first start in a race. And many of them have very little race time, if any. So we talked about the 1 and 1A. My 4th choice is the 9, Neat Trick. Dylan Davis is up for Danny Gargan. Mentioned how Danny Gargan does win races on the NYRA circuit, and he wins at Saratoga. Davis is taking over for Luis Sayas, who's not riding this horse in this race. Raced at Gulfstream Park in Keeneland. Special weights. 2 nice races. All 3 races showed some decent tactical speed. From the outside post, I think this Daughter of Good Magic will likely stalk the pace that should be moderate to fast. And I didn't rule the horse out. And, I trust Dylan Davis, and I trust that the horse is going to improve. And if the horse improves, then you're looking at the 9 hitting the board in this spot. And I'm going to play that 5-1-9 triple cold and use the 9 in my superfectors. And depending on whether both of Pletcher's horses run or not, I may even use the 9 in a few exactas. Not sure I'm going to use them in my multiples or her in my multiples, but the respect is there. That horse should be considered on a lot of tickets. Lastly, the 7. Park Avenue Betty. Always love when John Kimmel has a first timer going. Kendrick Carmouche is in the saddle. This is a Daughter of Street Sense. $160,000 as a yearling. Nice line of works, gets LASIX first go. Consistent, timely, smart works. When you see a horse going for the first time out, you wouldn't be shocked if they ran well. Well, this horse could be a big overlay in the race. Again, when I have a maiden special weight race, and so much has to do with pedigree, and trust me, I do extensive bloodline capping, coupled with the workouts and the bonds they come from. But often you get horses that are overlays because others attract so much attention, they're forgetting about the ingredients that certain bonds bring to the table. So this horse could be a potential overlay and come out running at first asking. So this starts the late pick 5. The Geo Sette order of finish was 5-1, 1A, 9-7-4. That's race 6 at Saratoga. Remember, that started the late pick 5. Race 7, fillies, $110,000 allowance. That 1 mile creepy starting gate, that Wilson chute. Oh, John, the crew chief over at Pastor Warrior, and myself, I really loathe that starting gate. To say the least, it's very unique. That Wilson chute, that 1 mile, and it changes a lot of things, and you have to prepare for that in your handicap. So in race 7, which is scheduled on the dirt, and if it comes up wet, like I said, if I feel like I need to mention somebody who is moves up in the wet, then I will. Okay, so my order of finish in race 7 is 7-10-1-4-6. So it's a field of 10. I'm going 5 deep here. Who made my handicap? 7-10-1-4-6. Let's go over that. This is probably going to be on everybody's ticket. Ways and means. Even though this filly has to break from that crazy chute, they all have to. Chad Brown's got Pratt on this horse. You're probably very familiar with the name. Grade 1 Spinaway, Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks, and Grade 1 Kentucky Oaks. Obviously, the class of the race, numbers-wise, and even Chad Brown for Pratt, cutting back now to that 1 mile. Talking about a horse that's going to be short odds and clearly the one to beat. It's basically an exercise. I think Brown is sending this gal out, who's very talented. That's why the horse was entered in those other races. Look at the horse. Look at the horses that she lost to. All right. She wins her debut by the length of the track at Saratoga over this strip. She loses as odds on to Brightwork. Then is odds on again 3-5 and is second to Power Squeeze. And then she runs into the Gorilla Torpedo Anna. Just for FYI, and everybody else in the Kentucky Oaks. So the drop here is strictly an exhibition. We may get 1-5 or 2-5. Hopefully the horse is in 1-9. But I'm not looking past this horse. Win over the track, gets LASIX to boot. That's your key right there. So 7 top choice is a strong 7 single in your pick 5, unless there's an accident on the track. And even, believe me, I gave some consideration with that Wilson chute running a mile at Saratoga. But even with that, this horse just, between race times, class, and all in, is just, you can't go past that horse in this race. And you won't see any crazy overlay there, and it won't be considered an underway. They're going to bet this horse like they should. Let's hope we get 2-5 and not 1-9. Second, interesting here. I'm going with the 10. Obrigada. All right. Rudy Rod. gave this horse a hard look. Going back to July 30th, last win, I should say, Irad was up, wins over the track at Saratoga, probably the best race this horse has ever run. She has ever run in a career. So she's 4 years old, comes off a claim, has a win over the track, 40% winning percentage, won 4 of her 10 races. I feel like she fits with the field, and she may get ignored being on the extreme outside. Because listen, the outside is bad in this race, because getting around the first bend, you're just challenged even more so, because you got to come over to get into the race. And the horse has, average tactical speed, but I think in this spot, that's what they're going to do. They're going to make sure that he's forwardly placed. So this is one of those races. My second and third choice are sort of like 2 and 2B, but I wanted to mention the 10 first because of the post position. Third choice, or 2B, is Do Gooder. This is the daughter of Good Samaritan, Castellano up for Jenna Antonucci. Of course, Jenna Antonucci of Belmont Stakes fame, winning last year with Arcangelo. Nice, attractive-looking filly, really working brilliantly. And this is a horse who I marked that if it comes up wet, I even move the horse up some. Not as an upsetter, but will be my clear second horse in the exacta if it comes up wet. Love her workouts. Drops from a couple of grade 2s where apparently she was overmatched. And I'm expecting a big-time improvement off of those 2. Gets blinkers, working brilliantly. If it's wet, main exacta foe. If it's dry, could be in the exacta, using in my triples and my supers, no doubt. That's the 1, Do Gooder. Next is the 4, Ms. Sense, Todd Pletcher, Irad Ortiz, $500,000, daughter of Street Sense, hasn't been out since September. So what do? I have to go back and look at the horse's juvenile races. Both at Saratoga. One was an off-the-turfer debut, wins for fun, impressively. Next was 7 furlongs in a spin away. What are you going to do? Franco was up, lost the jockey. So you got one of those helter-skelter starts, declared a non-starter to boot. So you just put a big fat line with this horse's second race and just say she only has 1 race, and now she's making a first start as a 3-year-old. LASIK should help. Shown ability in her debut would be easily my third choice in this race. Must be used in your triples and superfectas if that's what you're doing, keying from ways and means. Can she make the exacta? I don't know. Hey, look, Irad Pletcher, always a chance. Decent price, probably 5-6 to 1. But I just think the 1 is more appealing. And the 10 just impressed the hell out of me with that big win at Saratoga. And, in a sprint. It's just a challenge to break well and to get in the mix earlier for that horse. Lastly, the last horse that makes my handicap that will undoubtedly be in the mix for a potential superfecta key is the 6, Broderie, daughter of Gervin, Joao Rosario up for Fernando Abreu, consistent, reliable, 5 for 5 on the board, a filly that's shown progression and improvement. When you see that, you can't rule out entirely, because if she goes forward again, she's a gimmick contender. She's not a contender to win the race because she's not going to beat Ways and Means, but she could hit your triple, your superfecta. So race 7, the fillies, 9 winners and 1 allowance, going a mile from that crazy shoot, 7:10.146. Let's go to race 8. We're starting the final pick 3, races 8, 9, and 10. Race 8, a mile and a 16th on the turf. Man, do I got a lot of ink on this page, pink, yellow, all kinds of stuff, because if it got wet out there, wet, nasty, which is unpredictable at this stage, they're likely to take this race off the turf to protect it for the finale, which has to be on the turf, the 2-mile Belmont Gold Cup. So please put that into consideration. Now, to sacrifice time, I'll talk a little about my top choices on turf and dirt, but I'm going to try to expedite this because this race was a big mess. Intriguing because it's state breds, maiden special, and it has the look that there may be potential price in this race and a lot of overlay. But on the turf, my order is 697-132. Write it down. Race 8, mile and a 16th, 8.5 furlongs on the turf, maiden special, state breds, 697-132. The 6 is Film Academy. IRAD's up for Mark Cassie. By the way, this is one of my better bets on the afternoon if it's on the lawn, because this guy, his last 2 were an open company at Gulfstream Park. Hasn't run since January 28. I'm okay with the works. I trust the barn. This is the 3-year-old gelding, son of Oscar Performance. But most importantly, the horse is back with breds. So raced competitively, an open company. In his last first-time Lasix, had a rough trip. You could watch the race. Didn't have much opportunity. It was 7.5 panels on the weeds. I trust the pedigree, and I trust IRAD, and I trust that this horse would be ready to go on the lawn. So definitely consider this horse as my top choice on the lawn. The 9 is my second choice. Mission Hill hasn't been out since August of 23. Ran 3 times as a 3-year-old. So this guy is making his 4-year-old debut. Son of Street Boss, Bill Mott, has his main guy, Alvarado, on the horse. First time gelding. Gets Lasix again. Not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. Needs to go forward. You know, has that race over the lawn at Saratoga. Didn't love, didn't have the best of trips in race review. But, you know, if I was going to take a horse on the lawn, who's going to be my second choice, it would be the 9, Mission Hill. My third choice is the 7. All good here. Christophe Clement, Joao Rosario, first time gelding, gets Lasix again. Son of Palace Malice, hasn't been out since July. Again, you got races like this. So many horses coming off a lengthy layoff from good barns with the reputation of having their horses ready. This horse on debut ran an open company and has been only in state bred races since. Could better my rating. If it is on the lawn, this horse is going to get money. I just don't. The others I mentioned beforehand, the 6 and the 9, just were a little more appealing to me. But if I was going to play a multi-race wager, I would use the 7 here out of respect to the conditions if it was on the lawn. 4th on the lawn is Romantic Charmer, the 1. James Ferraro, I'm good with. Son of Mendelssohn, a 3-year-old here. Castellano's up. has a race in the wet, just in case it gets wet out there. I think the horse will appreciate being on the inside. If it's on the lawn, somewhat of a stretch out after sprinting a few and then going a mile on Aqueduct. I really wanted this horse to switch over to the turf. So let's hope it stays on the turf, because that's where the consideration was. If it's off the turf, he's going to be one of mine that is definitely a contender if it's off the turf, because the horse has a race in the wet, and being on the inside is going to have a tactical advantage because he does have some tactical speed. Finally, on the turf, my fifth choice, the 3, Tita's Trotter, definitely has a turf pedigree. One thing about David Donk, his conditioner, every year at Saratoga, he finds his way into win circle, So on the turf or off the turf, I'm going to consider David Donk, this 3 horse. Franco's up for him. Works are nothing to write home about, but they're steady enough for me. Lasix first time out. Like this horse more on the turf, but we'll consider on turf or dirt at a price for David Donk, who, by the way, has another horse in this race. We're going to get into that in a second. Let me go over that right now. David Donk is also the trainer of the 5, Wind Dancer. Wind Dancer, same scenario, first time out, son of War Dancer. Gomez is up for Donk in this one. 2 first timers, 1 race. Possible. It's not a. Listen, I'm probably, if I'm doing well on a day and I'm playing a late pick 5, there's a chance I put his horse in at a big price, because somehow, some way, you see Donk show up in the winning circle with his jet hat on, and I wouldn't let that beat me. But again, this is sort of like that race I spoke about earlier, the maiden claimer, that you didn't know if it was going to be on or off the turf because the weather. But I gave you my precise order. On the turf, 6, 9, 7, 1, 3, 2. Off the turf, everything changes. The 16, Iron Man Ira. Ira adds up for Richard Dutrow. Pretty self-explanatory. The connections, he ran an open company, didn't do well. We back, shows speed. If the 16 is in, 16 is going to be my top choice on the dirt. Write that down. And my order on the dirt will be 16, 1. I mentioned the 1. The 3, I talked about David Donk on the 3. The 2, I spoke a little about the stretch out. And by the way, Katie Davis is on the 2. I think it's her only mount of the day for Barkley Tag. Artful Dreamers, getting blinkers. Raced in open company in one of her 2 races, back with state breds. If it's off the turf, I give this horse a little more of a chance being on the inside, getting blinkers. So that's the 2. And the 6, Film Academy, who I talked about being back with breds, my top choice on the weeds. If for some reason they run that horse on the dirt, if it's off the turf, then for all the reasons why, the open company horse from a good barn going back with breds would be right there in the thick of things as well. That's race 8. Let's move on to the late double and what could be the 2 best races of the day. All right? They're all good. Listen, if you're playing, this is the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. So you want to be in action. If you're a horse player, you're betting on Thursday. That's why I'm doing this show. All right? Now, you got to manage your capital. You'd love to, because what I'm going to do, I'm playing every race. I'm being honest with you. I'm playing every race because I value my opinion, trying to help you guys. But I want to make money on Thursday so we can have more money and more capital to bet on Friday and Saturday. All right? Race 9, Saratoga, Phillies, stakes race. The Astoria, 150,000 on the dirt. You don't have to worry about switchovers. Sprint, 5.5 furlongs. Let's talk about it. My order of finish, 428,931. Write it down. 428,931. Race 9, which goes off at 5:17 Eastern, or estimated to be going off at 5:17 Eastern. Okay, because we have 9 in the race, I'm just going to streamline through my top 6, which is 428,931. And if I have to talk a little about the wet, I will. My top choice is West Memorial. Raylu Gutierrez is back up on this guy. If you watch those 2 races at Keeneland and Churchill Downs, very impressed with this filly. A gut-wrenching duel in debut. Practically the length of the stretch, just misses to a horse that was 45-1. Came back right out of that race, goes to Churchill in a sprint against the boys. This is a filly race. So Rose comes back after that grueling stretch run, then beats the boys. Very impressed. Automatically my top choice. Lots to like about this gal. And I don't think she'll be the favorite. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I didn't write it down, but this horse was originally trained by John Hancock when she ran her debut. And now the barn has changed. But Raylu's back up, and I like this horse's chances. That's the 4. The 2 is Aroki. Now, this is probably going to be a jockey change. Not probably, will be a jockey change. It's Stephen Asmussen, and Keith Asmussen was on the horse. Again, I don't know who they're putting on the horse, but I'm going to like the horse either way, and even more so if it comes up wet. So dry, I'm on the 4. Wet, the 2 is my second choice, but the 2 moves up to be my top choice if it's wet. Aroki, first time out for Asmussen at Churchill, broke from the 9 hole, obviously gets a much better post. That was a 5 furlong sprint, got the 9 hole, raced well, was patient, looked very professional. I do have to check who's on him, and Stephen Asmussen's going to put a good rider on him, obviously. And let's hope that Keith Asmussen, a fast recovery from his injuries. But the 2 is my second choice on dry, close to being my top choice, but the 4 was very impressive beating the boys and is my top choice if it turns up wet. My third choice is the 8, the Queen's MG. IRAD's up. Another barn change, Safi Joseph. Now, this is the horse that beat West Memorial. Folks, watch this race. Go to Keeneland April 7th and watch the Queen's MG and West Memorial do battle down the stretch. And this 8 got up to win at 45-1. That was a big effort. Make no mistakes. Now, Safi Joseph is someone you need to respect, and IRAD's on the horse. So the 8 is a strong third choice in this race because that horse was resilient and won that race after battling throughout the stretch. So that's my top 3, 4-8. Let me give you my bottom 3, who should be used in your deeper gimmicks. Next is a 9, Long Neck Paula. Now, let me ask you something. When you're probably handicapping this race, you're saying, Geo, man, that horse is your 4th choice? Well, let me explain a little. Lots to like about this horse. Johnny V up for Wesley Ward. It may sound like I'm shorting Wesley Ward. This is a fast filly. If you watch that race at Churchill, May 2nd, horse was like a rocket. The outside post, extreme outside post. Daughter of Uncle Mo, cost a pretty penny as a yearling, $500,000. If you watch the way that horse breaks from the extreme outside and angles over, clears the field, and it was like a 16th of a mile. So She won easy that day. Dangerous second start. Daughter of Uncle Mo. But there's a part of me that's thinking that was such a strong, strong effort. May 2nd, a month ago. Filly's making a second start, jumping from that special weight mating event to the stakes race. The 3 horses I have listed ahead, the 4, the 2, and the 8, to me, just have that extra element of seasoning. Now, you may think, well, the 8 with the Queen's MG sort of did the thing, ran her eyeballs out and won at 45-1. But Irad's back up for race number 2. And, you got to consider everything. So, yeah, do I wish the 9 gets bet and get bet heavily and even as low as even money? I'd love to see it, because then my other 3 will be an overlay. So the only decision I have to make is if I'm going to use the 9 in my multiples. But on the win end or my exacta, not using them. I'm going 4, 2, 8, 9. And 9 closes out my superfecta and will definitely be part of my triple key or my superfecta key. My 5th choice in the race, because I said I'm going 6 deep, is French Horn, the 3. Prots up for Mark Casse. Very nice debut. Major jockey change, all due respect, going to Pratt. Ships in from Woodbine. Now, Woodbine, it's a synthetic track. Horse worked at Woodbine before she left. A nice workout, bullet workout. If you watch that race at Woodbine, she broke well, fast, and she was just unrelenting. Very impressive first race. However, albeit on the synthetic, and now she's stretching out another furlong, 220 yards, and, she could go forward, but the other's just more appealing. That's the 3, my 5th choice. Lastly, the 1, Jenna Antonucci. I marked down 2 words: possible overlay. And I really mean this. 2 times out, Keeneland, 4.5 furlong sprints, was in the same race with the Queen's MG and West Memorial, who I spoke a lot about that race, so I recommend you watch it, especially for those 2 fillies duking it out in a stretch. But she didn't have much of a chance that race, and she came back and she raced pretty well in her second start. So, I trust the Jenna Antonucci barn, and, I wouldn't be shocked here. So the 1 will be in my deeper gimmicks, no doubt. And I'm going to watch the board for could be a rather aggressive overlay with Castellano in the silks. Race 9, there you go. Finally, we've reached the ending. I don't know, we're probably going a little more, maybe an hour and a half. I'm hoping you guys have stuck around. If you took a break and paused, you went to go get something to eat, that works too. Race 10. I know you're going to finish watching the show. The 2-mile, 250,000 Grade 2 Belmont Gold Cup. 2-mile race, ladies and gentlemen. Big field. I'm just going to give you my precise order and talk about those horses and give you a couple additional comments, and we're all done. But Naira, Saratoga, I don't care if there's a monsoon out there. They're going to do all they can to keep this race on the lawn. All right? Otherwise, they're going to just butcher it. Top choice, maybe everybody's top choice, but you're going to be intrigued with my cold exacta, because if it's a soft turf and this race is on the turf and it's soft, I may make a big exacta bet in this race, big, because I have that level of confidence. So my top choice is the 12. The absolute class, Godolphin Blue. William Buick is back. Last year's winner. Now, by the way, I admire horses that travel and travel very well. This horse is overseas. comes to the United States, wins this race last year, wins again at Santa Anita, goes back overseas, and now is back for this race. Between the pedigree, Charlie Appleby, the barn, the reputation, Godolphin Blue, the rider, if this horse gets a trip, the horse is a winner. I'm going to repeat. Can't get past this horse. I'm sorry. And trust me, I tried, but I couldn't get past it. So, him. Horse is a gelding. 9 wins on the lawn, 10 lifetime, 1,250,000, proven at the distance, hard to go against. That's the 12. My second choice is the 1. Now, this horse, I'm looking to, if I see the conditions during the day, and this is saved to be on the lawn, and they're going to do all they can to keep this race on the lawn. Shug McGahee, Shug's horse, he's got Cancel back up, Eric Cancel, who I think is an underappreciated rider on the New York circuit. Limited liability. This is a son of Kitten's Joy. Body of work, through and through on the lawn, in my opinion, fits with this field. Always comes, only won 3 out of 15 starts, 9 out of 14 in the money, proven over the Saratoga lawn. I don't see a problem if it got soft out there. That's why I'm saying if there is rain, if they take the other races off the turf and this remains on the turf, and I can't see any scenario where it's not, unless there's a quadruple monsoon out there. What a mess it would be if they ran 2 miles off the turf, and it wouldn't even be 2 miles. But it is 2 miles on the lawn. And if this horse gets a trip, in my opinion, the most likely horse to finish second. Could the horse steal the race? Yeah, if the 12 has a horrendous trip and doesn't, gets blocked badly, it could happen. But I have to make that decision if I'm going to go too deep in my pick 5 and my late pick 3 and my late double. But the 1 is being used in my exacta strong in all my triples and in my superfectas. My third horse is the 5. Let me give it a full order. 12, 1, 5, 6, 9, 11, 3. 12, 1, 5, 6, 9, 11, 3 on the turf. So the 5 is starting over. Manny Franco up for Mike Maker. Powerful closer. By the way, I said this about Mike Maker many times. Mike Maker is one of the more underrated. Well, he's not really underrated, but he's a great, great conditioner on the turf. He finds horses, he steps them up, and he makes money. And he gets as much as you can get out of a horse for the ownership as well. So starting over, I feel we'll get a good trip, come running late. 10 for 19 on the board on the turf, winning 5 times. Nice horse. Expect the horse to be running late for Mike Maker and Manny Franco. That's the 5. The 6 is my next choice, Champagne Juan. Now they're asking the horse to go 2 miles. It is Rosario for Christophe Clement. It is the son of Justify. Now, it is a 4-year-old facing older, accomplished horses, but you're facing older, but you're the son of Justify, and who happens to be a really good turf sire. Last 3, improving, steady, consistent, reliable. The only question mark here is the 2 miles. Yeah, Justify is a strong sire, but 2 miles on the lawn, expecting this horse to be up early, not on the lead, but around the lead. Will seize it if he can, but, sitting 3rd, 4th, or 5th, not too far back. and then making a consistent progression run. But on my handicap, the horse is fourth in my handicap. The fifth choice is the 9, 6 minus, Irad for Pletcher. By default, I would consider Irad in a 2-mile race anyway because I trust him and his decision-making ability. But the horse, his line of work on the lawn isn't terrible. Doesn't win often. He's only 3 for 20. But it is a son of English Channel. You do have Irad. You got to respect the barn. And I just think the horses in this race, ran 2 miles at Gulfstream, was a neck off. Wouldn't be a shock to hit the board in your exotics. That's the 9. Listed as my 5th choice, but will be used in my superfectas and my triples because I'm betting this race. Next up, the 11 made my handicap, the Gray Wizard. Now, this horse is built for the distance. Johnny V's up for Grand Motion. Another horse has some good turf efforts. Grade 2-wise, fits in the mix. Would I like this horse to be a little more consistent? Yeah. Can better my rating? Yeah. Do I respect Johnny V and Grand Motion? Yeah. Superfecta consideration? Yeah. But didn't make my top 3 and is deeper in my handicap. And finally, the last horse to consider, number 3, really good. Mike Maker again, Dylan Davis. What a strong closer. Late kick. Will be in the lane. Needs a trip. Wouldn't be shocked. When you got a race like this and there's so many that are underneath and are evenly matched, you start thinking about that key. And that's my key. So my order of finish in the 2-mile turf to close out day 1 is 12-1-5, 6-9, 11-3. I'm going deeper just in case there's some scratches. And I'm really thinking about a very strong exacta wager here in 12-1. And if I play the 12-1 exacta, I'm doing 12-1 with 12-1, 5-6-9 in my triple for a good price. The only other decision I'm going to make is that can the 1 under Pentium perfect circumstances beat the 12? So I got to make a decision on that. So there you have it. Other than the calamity of the first race, me went back and forth. I'm hoping you found this very informative. Don't forget, the entire Belmont Racing Festival can be wagered on AmWager. Stay tuned for so much more at Past the Wire. I will be back. Literally tonight, I'll be taping it. I put hours and hours and hours into this card, but I will be back with Big Race Jim, methodically breaking down the Belmont Stakes, 10-horse field, 1 through 10, all the way down the line. Don't miss it. We're taping it tonight and may even be released tonight after this is released. So stay tuned for our Belmont Stakes rundown, myself and Big Race Jim. Stay tuned for John, the Pick Six King, and his Belmont Stakes seminar, which is by invitation only. And if you're watching this, if you're a part of that. Always a great show. Go back and watch John's Thoroughgraph by numbers, patterns and numbers. Great show. And if I see enough in the comments, and I've been busting my hump, I'm inundated with work. But if I see enough in the comments, I may come back and do a Friday Pick 5. Major race day on Friday. But there's nothing like the race day that the Belmont Stakes is bringing us. 14 races, starts like 10:45 in the morning. If you're a horse racing enthusiast, you'll love the undercard, and it's like an orgy for the day in horse racing sense. But in the same tone, this Thursday card, if you're a horse racing fan, thoroughbreds, of course, forget about those that dabble in, in the other racing. I don't even want to talk about trotters. But if you're a thoroughbred racing fan, you're betting opening day at Saratoga every year. And you're betting opening day of the 2024 Belmont Festival Racing Classic, the festival. It's a 4-day event. You're betting Thursday, you're betting Friday, you're betting Saturday, Belmont Stakes Day, and you're coming back to bet on Sunday. And I figure I'd give you a head start. Let me know what you think. If you have a question about the off the turf or this, that, if you felt I missed something, please comment. Check out my new hat, my 2024 Breeders' Cup Del Mar. I expect to be significantly in the black, getting ready for the Breeders' Cup in November. But we got a lot of work to do here past the wire. We got to get through this weekend, have a great Belmont Stakes. Stay tuned for the new shows this week. Stay tuned for the Belmont Stakes show. I'll be recording tonight. I'll be in attendance in the press room at the Haskell. Boots on the ground, the whole 9 yards. I can't wait. That's my home track, Monmouth. And we'll take you through everything else throughout the summer, into the fall championship series and into the Breeders' Cup. Thanks for being around. It was worth the 2 hours if that's how long we've been. And let's go get them. Talk to you soon. God bless you.
They're off in the 2023 First Crop Sires Race. Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Mitoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vito Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Mitoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
With new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to drf.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Mini, a top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, Grade 2 winner Winstock, and Stakes winner Solo Shot. Solo Mini, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a Grade 1 or Grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 2-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average, more than 12 times the stud fee. Solomini, a controversial DQ from being a Grade 1 winner by 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds. Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup. Pick 6 King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit PastTheWire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Does it better.